Agriculture. Maria Elisa Antinero from NOAP. Ms. Amar Yasir Baragir from Halal Food Industry Development. Karen Marte from MED. Joel Lales from Bureau of Agricultural Research. From Bureau of Soils and Water Management, Sara Suministrado. Bureau of Animal Industry, Felipe R. Riolalas Jr. and Frederick C. Crisul, Bureau of Agriculture Standards. Ms. Rose Ann Leonor, Officer in Charge, ATI. Ms. Christine Cubero from the PRRI, Elisa Timacay, Milana Santos. Agricultural Credit Policy Council, Magdalena Casuga. Philippine Fiber Industry Development, Raquel Aquino. Margaret C. Enquito and Marifes Morales. From the NFRDI, Marites Bichoco. From the Coconut Authority, Mr. Ramon Rivera. From the regional field offices, Mr. Cameron Jose, Ms. Maria Christine Inting, Mr. Rodel Tornilla Angeles Enriquez. Madam Chair, we also have our resource persons from the Governance Commission for Government-Owned or Controlled Corporations, GCG, Attorney Alex Quiroz, Chairperson of the GCG, Commissioner Gideon Davy Mortel, Commissioner, Director Johan Carlos Barcena. That's all for now.
So at this point, I'd like to ask the BSP to give their position on the subject matter and to make your presentation. So please proceed.
Good morning, honorable senators. Thank you for inviting the BSP to shed light about the country's first polymer piso. On behalf of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, I am Deputy Governor Mamerto Tangonan of the BSP's Payments and Currency Management Sector. Much as the governor would be glad to personally attend today's session, he is currently in Washington, D.C., representing the BSP in the IMF World Bank annual meeting. I am joined by my BSP colleagues, Senior Assistant Governor and General Counsel Attorney Elmer Capule on my left, Senior Assistant Governor Iluminada Sicat of the Monetary and Economic Sector on Attorney Capule's left, Managing Director Tony Lambino of the Strategic Communications Subsector on my right, and further right is the Director Eloisa Glindro, and farthest left is Deputy Director Sarah Curtis, both from the Payments and Currency Management Sector. I am pleased to share our initiatives and analysis on the issuance of the new 1,000 piso polymer banknotes. This presentation is structured as follows. First, we will recall the legal basis of the BSP polymer project. Second, we will discuss the BSP polymer project, underscoring the rationale of it. Third, we will present the results of our research based on international publications, reports from other central banks, as well as from consultations with them. Fourth, we will present the estimated impact on the Abaca industry, starting from its value chain and its link to Philippine banknote production. And last would be the recap. The 1987 Philippine Constitution provides that Congress shall establish an independent central monetary authority to provide policy direction in the areas of money, banking, and credit. Consistent with our constitutional mandate, the new Central Bank Act of 1993, as amended, vests upon the BSP the exclusive power and authority to issue currency. It likewise states that all notes and coins issued by the BSP are legal tender in the Philippines for all debts, both public and private. The BSP Monetary Board, with the approval of the President of the Philippines, is granted the power to prescribe denominations, dimensions, designs, inscriptions, and other characteristics of currencies. The MB is also granted the authority to determine the volume of notes to be printed and coins to be minted. The law provides that all expenses incurred, for which shall be for the account of the BSP. Furthermore, the BSP is granted the power to call in for replacement any series or denomination of banknotes which are more than 5 years old and coins which are more than 10 years old. This is consistent with the practices of central banks around the world. The current series of Philippine banknotes first went into circulation more than 10 years ago. The President Duterte approved the design, technical specifications, and features of the 1,000 piso polymer banknote on 29 October 2021. In the fulfillment of our mandate as the sole issuer of currency, the BSP must ensure that our currency is secure against serious counterfeiting and that the needs of the Filipino people are served. Hence, the BSP continuously seeks ways to improve the quality of Philippine banknotes for the greater good. Public concerns on hygiene, particularly during the height of the pandemic, together with the advancement in counterfeiting technology and growing awareness and need for environmental sustainability, prompted the BSP to search for alternative banknote substrates that are responsive to the emerging needs of Philippine society. Looking at the global trends on banknote substrates, we saw that more and more countries have shifted to polymer banknotes. To date, there are about 56 jurisdictions that have issued polymer banknotes. Therefore, we turn to published research reports, mostly by other central banks, and conducted consultative discussions with some of them. Based on our findings, among the most cited strengths of polymer banknotes is that it is being relatively more difficult to counterfeit, more hygienic, more environment-friendly, durable, and cost-effective. Allow me to expound more on each of the benefits reported by other central banks. On security, polymer banknotes are comparatively more challenging to counterfeit than paper banknotes. Detailed images and more complex security features can be embedded with the use of more advanced and expensive technology that is designed to decrease the likelihood of counterfeiting. In Canada, counterfeit rates decreased from 470 parts per million to only 15 parts per million. In Vietnam, they reported that counterfeit rates dropped by 80%. On being more hygienic, compared to paper banknotes, polymer banknotes are significantly cleaner and can be sanitized with less risk of damage. Its smooth, non-absorptive surface makes it more resistant to water, oil, and dirt. After reviewing the scientific evidence, the Philippine Department of Health also suggested the shift of polymer banknotes to reduce the survival time of bacteria and viruses in banknotes. In the report published in the Virology Journal entitled The Effect of Temperature on Persistence of SARS-CoV-2 on Common Surfaces, the authors, Riddle, etc., reported that the survival time of SARS-CoV-2 was 7 days at 30 degrees Celsius, the test condition being similar to our local temperature, on polymer banknotes and 3 times longer or 21 days on paper banknotes. In another study performed by Vriescoop et al. In 2010, they reported that in Mexico, the average number of bacteria encountered on polymer banknotes was approximately only 25% of that found on the cotton-based paper banknotes. On lower environmental impact, polymer banknotes have a smaller carbon footprint, lower water and energy usage, and less environmental toxicity. When polymer notes are retired, they can be recycled, unlike paper notes, which are shredded, then burned or sent to landfills. Polymer banknotes are fully recyclable. Consistent with the BSP's commitment to sustainability, retired polymer banknotes will not be disposed in our oceans. Rather, they will be recycled into various products such as school chairs and desks, building components, plant pots, and garden furniture. Polymer banknotes are found to have smaller carbon footprint because of their longer lifespan. In the Cradle to Grave study commissioned by the Bank of England and duly certified by the Carbon Trust Standard for Carbon, reported that the global warming potential in terms of greenhouse gas emissions from production of polymer banknotes is up to 53% lower than paper banknotes. Further, polymer banknotes require less water and energy, contributing to conservation of environmental resources. Moreover, in a life cycle study commissioned by the Bank of Canada, which is compliant with the ISO 1440 standards for life cycle assessment, it was found that polymer substrate shows environmental benefits over paper in all phases of its life cycle. First, in the manufacturing phase, since it has to be produced 2.5 times less than the paper banknote. Second, in the distribution, since it has to be distributed 2.5 less times and its weight is lighter. And third, in end of life, since the contained carbon in paper banknotes is released as greenhouse gases in landfill or in incineration. On durability, polymer banknotes can last at least 2.5 times longer than paper banknotes. Malaysia reported that their polymer banknotes last 4 times its paper predecessor. Mexico and Vietnam reported up to 3.8 times to 4 times than paper banknotes respectively. With the longer lifespan, polymer notes are more cost-effective than paper notes, leading to lower note issue expenses on the part of central banks. Banknote issue expenses could be reduced by 40 to 60% per experience of other central banks. The Bank of England estimated that the printing of the 5 and 10-pound notes on polymer rather than on paper reduces production costs by 25%, amounting to around 100 million pounds in savings over a 10-year period. Australia's switch to polymer banknotes resulted to close to $1 billion net savings over the past 25 years in inflation-adjusted terms, not considering the substantial savings from reduced counterfeiting cases. The adoption of polymer substrate is also compatible with the sustainability policy agenda. Based on publicly available information on jurisdictions that have fully adopted polymer substrate, all of them have robust environmental protection laws, including sustainable use of plastic. Aside from the durability and longer lifespan, recyclable property of polymer allows it to have more than one life. That is, the manufacture of banknotes does not represent the end of life for the resource, as it can be used to produce other products, creating further value for the society. In order to assess if the claimed benefits apply to Philippine conditions, the BSP, with the approval of the President, embarked on a circulation test of the first polymer piso. The 1,000 piso polymer banknote is being circulated alongside the existing 1,000 piso bills. Hence, no demonetization will occur. The BSP initially released the 1,000 piso polymer banknotes to banks for circulation in the Philippine financial system in April 2022. This initial issuance facilitated the calibrations and adjustments of banks' machines and other devices related to payment systems, such as money counting and sorting machines, cash processing machines, vending machines, automated teller machines, bill acceptors, and other similar devices. The BSP simultaneously provided a comprehensive training and communication program for cash handlers of banks, cash in transits, and machine suppliers. At the end of the circulation test, the BSP aims to acquire significant stakeholder feedback as larger volumes of 1,000 peso notes circulate in the economy. It has developed a polymer evaluation framework that consists of empirical studies to be undertaken no later than 2024. This would help us assess objectively if the reported benefits hold under Philippine condition. Our planned polymer evaluation framework covers the following: the carbon footprint analysis or the life cycle analysis. Second is the microbial contamination analysis. Third is perception surveys and sentiment analysis. And last but not least is the banknote lifespan analysis. Even with the documented positive experiences of other jurisdictions with polymer banknotes, the BSP is mindful of the potential impact on the Abaca industry. Thus, we also analyze the value chain and the magnitude of Abaca content of our banknotes to make sure that we are comparing apples to apples in the reckoning of the potential impact. Our existing paper banknote substrate is composed of 80% cotton and 20% Abaca. Abaca farmers do not directly supply Abaca to the BSP for the production of cotton Abaca banknotes. Instead, they supply Abaca pulp to various processors and exporters. The local accredited Abaca suppliers then export Abaca pulp to foreign specialty paper manufacturers abroad, among which are banknote paper manufacturers that have the machinery and expertise in converting Abaca pulp to banknote paper. At present, the BSP has two accredited local Abaca pulp suppliers, namely the Pulp Specialties Philippines Incorporated or PSPI and the Albay Agro-Industrial Development Corporation or Alindeco. The BSP then imports the banknote paper or outsourced finished banknotes from foreign manufacturers. The share of the estimated Abaca content of Philippine banknotes to total volume of Abaca fiber production in 2020 is just around 2%. Meanwhile, the share of Abaca content of our banknotes to Abaca export earnings is less than 2% at its peak. That is, when the BSP had multi-year procurement. There was no procurement of banknote paper materials and finished banknotes in 2021, given that the existing inventory are deemed sufficient to meet the tempered forecast demand for banknotes. The circulation test of 500 million pieces of 1,000 piece polymer banknote is estimated to affect 0.2 to 0.4% of Abaca farming jobs. That is 210 to 481 jobs. And 0.1 to 0.2% of Abaca export revenues. That is from 8.5 to 17 million pesos. The estimates were based on the assumption that Abaca suppliers have no alternative markets. That is, it is a do-nothing scenario. However, the BSP fully recognizes the vast potentials and growth opportunities given the large global demand. To quote the Philippine Abaca Industry Roadmap for 2021 to 2025, the growing global interest and acceptability for green products open urgent and endless opportunities for natural fibers as these are alternative resources that can be utilized for a wide range of applications, especially for the pulp and paper industry, in the composite market, textile, and even in lifestyle products and other industries. The emergent green economy is creating a global demand of an estimated 3 million metric tons of natural fibers. Based on 2021 market analysis report of Grand View Research, the global demand exceeds global supply with a shortfall of 25,000 metric tons in 2019. The longer lifespan of the polymer banknotes would translate into lower replacement cost, hence higher production cost savings. Using data on the actual volume of 2021 new banknote withdrawals by banks from the BSP and lifespan assumptions ranging from 2.5 times to 4 times longer than that of paper, estimated production savings amount to 1.2 to 2.4 billion pesos, holding other factors constant. Higher production savings would redound to higher net profits, 50% of which accrues to the national government. Higher dividend remittance to national government can then be used to fund government's economic and social programs. One possible use is support for PhilFIDA's Abaca flagship project, the Abaca Tuxi Buying Special Project that will produce higher quality Abaca and boost farm and income productivity by at least 100%. The Abaca Tuxi Buying Special Project aims to establish integrated centers where farmers can assess modern production techniques to increase farm yields, more efficient processing equipment, as well as better access to market through the GDE co-located in these centers. Other alternative uses include funding more hospital beds, classrooms, number of household beneficiaries of 4-piece program, mass housing units, etc. This scenario assumes that the volume of new banknotes issued in 2021 will go into polymer circulation test. Estimates of replacement cost savings range from a low of 32 centavos to a high of 1 peso and 55 centavos per banknote, equivalent to 1.26 to 4 billion pesos. In closing, allow me to summarize the key takeaways from this presentation. The BSP's polymer project is within the bounds of the mandate granted to the BSP by the Constitution and the new Central Bank Act. Its implementation is anchored on the approval of the President of the Republic in October 2021. The decision is supported by research on the experiences of other jurisdictions, which reported that polymer banknotes have longer lifespan, lower counterfeiting incidents, lower microbial contamination, more cost-effective, lower resource usage, and recyclable. We also coordinated with other central banks. We also evaluated the potential impact on the Abaca industry under a do-nothing scenario. But there are vast emerging opportunities to widen and diversify the client and product base. PhilFIDA has a comprehensive program that seeks to raise income and quality and volume of Abaca production. With the support of key government agencies, the Abaca industry could position itself in the emergent green economy and in the manufacture of personal protective equipment, or PPE. Moreover, the BSP will also assess if the claimed benefits apply to Philippine conditions when substantial volume of the 1,000 piso polymer banknotes have been fully circulating. Thank you very much, and good morning, your honorable senators.
Yes, thank you very much thank you to the BSP for your very comprehensive presentations. At this point, I'd like to ask our colleagues if they would like to ask questions. We have for the first to arrive was Senator Bongo. So if Senator Go. Okay, next to ask is Senator Coco Pimentel. Senator. Siguro, since maybe let's give him a few minutes. But in the meantime, we also have Senator Robin Hood Padilla with us, who might want to ask some questions. Senator.
Mr. Chair, may I be recognized?
May I ask who's, please, may I ask you to identify yourself?
Sorry, this is Deputy Governor Mamerto Tangonan of the BSP.
Yes, please proceed. Please proceed.
Yes. Your Honor, there were other matters raised during the privilege speech and in the ensuing discussions. If the honorable senators would agree, we would be happy to present to respond to those other issues raised, Your Honor.
Yes, please proceed.
So, Your Honor, next we would like to present to the honorable senators the rationale behind the change in the visual design of the 1,000 peso polymer banknotes. To present, Your Honor, is Managing Director Tony Lambino.
Yes, please proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, honorable senators. This presentation is on the design of the new 1,000 peso polymer banknote. The design of the polymer banknote was selected to promote environmental sustainability. It features the Philippine eagle, the country's national bird, which is a symbol of Filipino pride and identity, but regrettably an endangered species. We hope that through this new design, Filipinos will be reminded of our duties and responsibilities as stewards of the natural environment and the need for everyone to contribute to the sustainability agenda, given the pressing challenges of climate change and other environmental risks. The new 1,000 peso polymer banknote has the same size and color as the existing 1,000 peso paper banknotes. The name of the Philippine eagle featured on the 1,000 peso polymer banknote is Imbulog, which means to soar. The Philippine eagle is one of the rarest eagles in the world, which can only be seen in the Philippines. It is also considered to be one of the largest and most powerful among forest raptors. According to the Philippine Eagle Foundation, the Philippine eagle is listed as critically endangered by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, or the IUCN, with an estimated number of not more than 400 pairs left in the wild. Imbulog is among them. Imbulog is also a captive eagle at the Philippine Eagle Center in Davao. It spans over 7 feet and stands nearly 4 feet tall. The photographer of the Philippine Eagle portrait used in the 1,000 peso polymer banknote hopes that his photo will inspire Filipinos to save the Philippine eagle from extinction. This is not the first time we are featuring the Philippine eagle in our currency. It was featured in the 50 centavo coin that was in circulation for decades. It was also featured in the 500 peso commemorative coin issued in 2018 to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the BSP. The BSP has featured both our heroes and our natural environment in currency designs over decades. Adopting these two themes highlights our national heritage and numismatic artistry. We would like to note that the BSP has printed and minted more than 60 circulated currencies featuring national heroes. The selection of currency design themes is cyclical, and we feature our sources of national pride at various times and using different denominations. For example, you may recall that Lapu-Lapu was featured on the 1 centavo coin decades ago, and now he is on the 5,000 peso commemorative banknote. At present, the 1 centavo coin carries the endemic flora theme, featuring the mangkono or Philippine ironwood, a species of plant endemic to the islands of the Visayas, Palawan, and northeastern Mindanao. The tree is rare and is classified as vulnerable by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, or the IUCN, due to overharvesting and habitat loss. The BSP believes that national heroes and endemic flora and fauna, especially endangered species, are deeply important to the Filipinos' cultural and heritage promotion and preservation, and both are worthy of being celebrated through our coins and banknotes. Other countries also feature various designs in their banknotes in addition to heroes and personalities. The Euro banknotes feature windows and doorways to symbolize the European spirit of openness and cooperation. The Russian ruble features important landmarks in Russia, such as the Russky Bridge, Vostochny Cosmodrome, Monument to the Sunken Ships, Khabarovsk Bridge, John the Baptist Church, among others. The Swiss franc depicts organizational prowess, a vibrant cultural scene, the wealth of experiences, humanitarian tradition, and track record as a research hub. The hand illustrates the theme of each note through an action. For example, on the 50 franc note, the hand holds a dandelion, its seeds scattering in a puff. The hand on the 20 franc note holds a prism refracting light, while the 10 franc note shows an orchestra conductor's hands keeping time with her baton. Hong Kong dollars feature important events and festivals that they celebrate in the country, such as the Establishment Day, Mid Autumn Festival, Spring Lantern Festival, among others. Argentinian banknotes feature animals like the jaguar, whale, and taruca, which is a type of deer. With this series, the Central Bank of Argentina aims to raise awareness of the biodiversity and environmental protection in their country. For example, the jaguar was selected as it is deemed a national natural monument in Argentina, one of the most important categories in terms of preservation, as it is a critically endangered species. Only around 250 jaguars have been calculated to exist in the country. The Brazilian real features a figure wearing a crown of bay leaves and fauna. Through history, this effigy has often been used in allegoric paintings and sculptures displayed in government buildings throughout Brazil, as well as being used on Brazilian coins and banknotes. So here are some of the major reasons for the design selection, as well as examples from other countries in terms of their own currency designs. Thank you very much, Your Honors.
Thank you very
Your
much.
Honor. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, yes.
Mr. Chair, if it would be in the pleasure of the honorable senators, we can also present to address or to respond to the topic on varying interest rates and exchange rates that was also raised during the privilege speech, Your Honor.
Yes, please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, it's Senator Pia Cayetano.
Hello. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Senator Pia Cayetano. Yes,
Thank you.
proceed,
Mr.
Senator.
Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I was listening earlier and I just have a few questions on the sustainability. So can I ask my questions before the next
Yes,
presentation?
yes, yes. Please proceed. Please proceed.
Thank you. Yes, as I was saying, good morning to all, no, to the BSP team that's present today. I heard your presentations earlier. I was listening intently, and they are quite consistent with the information that we had that was available to us at the time that the privileged speech of the Minority Floor Leader, Senator Coco Pimentel, was delivered. Although I'd like to thank you for providing more information. There was more detail provided on the issue, so thank you for that. But I would just like to go to a few points on sustainability. I chair the Committee on Sustainable Development Goals, Innovation, and Futures Thinking. So my interventions are usually precisely to ask the agencies if we are really looking at the entire picture and looking at the sustainable development goals that we have, if we are using the resources we have to balance those different interests. So I note, listening carefully to the presentation, that in the view of BSP, basing it on studies conducted by other similar agencies in other countries, the view taken by BSP is that the shift to polymer notes is a sustainable move, right? That is the the overall theme that I receive. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. Sorry, who's answering? Sorry, the photo is the camera is not focused on the speaker, so at least I know who I'm talking to.
Your Honor, this is BSP Deputy Governor Mamerto Tangonan.
Hello, Deputy Governor. Thank you. Yes,
Morning.
I recognize your voice. No, you made the you were speaking earlier. So that is the position you take, and I just like to go into that a little bit. No, you mentioned that through the shift, polymer is more sustainable because of the use of less water. The carbon footprint is smaller, and that you can then recycle it into chairs, etc., tables, etc. Right? That is the statement you made, no? That's fairly accurate.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, and my question is, polymer is not in itself is not biodegradable, right? As opposed to abaca and cotton, which are the main ingredients of the current paper that we use, because um, this probably is more science than than I am trained for. So I like to listen to the experts. Offhand, polymer is not biodegradable. So there are ways that you can recycle it, but it is not biodegradable. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Yes. So in that sense, it is not truly sustainable. I mean, there are different ways we define sustainability, no? So of course, reusing is one way, and it is in a better direction than not, but it is not biodegradable as opposed to abaca and cotton. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor. And if I may, although it is not biodegradable, Your Honor, but it can be converted to other useful
Correct.
uses
Yes.
of
Yes, I gathered that, and
the
thank you
waste material.
for you did mention that. I was listening very intently because it boils down to these kind of issues. No, there's a lot of things that we can produce out of plastic. One of the biggest issues is collection. No, so I'm shifting, not just to have a general discussion on this. So, for example, for the use of PET bottles, other other products that can supposedly be broken down and reused. The difficulty is in the collection. So in the case of bills, that problem will be eliminated because when you then retire old bills, people surrender it to you. No, so in terms of collection, that's not that big of a problem, and then you can proceed to repurpose it in the examples that you gave. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor. There's currently an effective system by which unfit banknotes, Your Honor, are collected and surrendered to the BSP for the BSP to dispose of them properly, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. And that makes it that does make this that does simplify it compared to other plastic products that are in the market, and then we claim that, oh, but we can reuse it, but the collection has been and I think we may have environment. I hope the committee has invited environmentalists to discuss this. No, as I know that is one issue that we have. Let me go to another one. No, and I note all the other points you raise for sustainability on lower carbon footprint, less use of water, so on and so forth. That I just have to rely on the facts, on the data. I have no way of confirming that. I'd also like to be able to listen later on to the other those who have different concerns, no, so that we can address that. But what I do want to point out, Mr. Chairman, before I leave that point, I'll emphasize that it is still not biodegradable. So when we look at the sustainability picture, we always have to take those different factors into concern. No, so it may in fact use more water. I don't know it for a fact. I'm just relying on the data you provided. It may have a smaller carbon footprint, but it will not biodegrade. It will still be there and remain. It is a product we created and it will stay there forever. As opposed to Abaca and cotton. The other SDG, Sustainable Development Goal, that I would like to point out, Your Honors, Deputy Governor, is Sustainable Development Goal number 8, which is decent work. So I think I think you know where I'm going here. Decent work requires that we support our industries, no? And one of those industries is the Abaca industry. So when we look again at the whole sustainability of this program, we also look at how it affects work. And I do know, again, I listened intently. I also read the materials that I had during the privilege speech, because I also had a resolution that I drafted, but I didn't get to file it yet because I was actually still studying the issue. So, but for that reason, I had studied this issue. So Sustainable Development Goal is decent work and economic growth. And there is an impact to the Abaca farmers. I noted how you expressed that there are other ways to help the farmers, that only a small percent are affected. I listened, so I am conscious of that. But the fact remains that there is an effect. And maybe if I look at another SDG goal, which I'd like to include to present the a complete picture, is the Abaca farmers and the products that they make form an integral part of our history and maybe in a way our culture, because we have always been known to be Abaca exporters. Interestingly nga, yung Manila folder pala, no, came from that history. I was pleasantly surprised to be educated on that. So knowing that this is a big part, Abaca production is a big part of who we are. There have been decisions made in the past on other issues in our country and other countries where they preserve the use of a certain product despite there being technology that is available to move towards a different way of production, because the original way of producing symbolizes who we are as a people. So that's another reason that should just always be taken in consideration. I'm not trying to um, to minimize the advantages that you have presented for polymer. I am simply trying to present the complete picture coming from the Sustainable Development Goals, which I chair. No, so decent work and economic growth is a part of it, and it affects who we are as a people, because Abaca production has been with us for a long time. I think I will mention Sustainable Development Goal number 11, because sustainable communities is part of who the Abaca farmers belong to. We want to have them continue to be a sustainable community. And when we take away a part of what they rely on for work, then that affects their sustainability as a farming community. And it may actually not be totally sustainable, because you're shifting to a product, as I said, that is not biodegradable. And then I wanted to point out that sustainable goal on good health, as you mentioned, you got the green light from the DOH, no? Is that correct? Yes.
Yes, Your Honor. It was reviewed by the research materials were reviewed by the DOH, and they rendered an opinion, Your Honor, that it's better for the Philippines, Your Honor.
Yes. I note that, because, and I appreciate that, the work that you did there, because I like the fact that you've looked at the different aspects, no? So if that is in fact a positive thing, then we have to recognize that, and it's something that I commend you for looking at that. But yun nga lang, yung sa communities natin, and the digging further into the definition of sustainability, I think that's something that you might want to look at. So those are basically the main points that I wanted to raise, because it is very possible that these points may affect your decision. As I said, I wish I had examples, no, but if I come up with something, I will be happy to share it with the committee. But I am so certain that there are decisions that we have made. Let me just talk of historical and cultural preservation. Many times, by law, we actually protect what do you call this, buildings or other structures that are 50 years of age or older. We give it the benefit of the doubt that they may have cultural significance. Now I see the Deputy Governor nodding his head, so you're familiar with that. So it's not set in stone, no? It has to be assessed by the experts. Pero parang ganun din, if there is a practice that we have that also, and I appreciate the presentation by my good friend Tony Lambino on the use of the eagle, and how other countries use designs that are personal to them. So ganun din, di ba? It's also personal to us, the use of Abaca as a fabric. It is your job in the central bank. Thank you also for the very thorough presentation on the mandate that you have on this. On our part naman, on the legislature, we also look into these issues in aid of legislation. So that is just my role. I'm trying to find a balance here. I have often been in situations where I need to propose legislation that balances the interests of different groups, and sometimes they are conflicting. There may be reasons that point to one decision versus another, but I'm always happy to hear all the reasons that may help me make a better decision. So that's really just the reason we are sharing this with the BSP. I think that is all for now. I'll just finally read into the record. I mentioned sustainable cities and communities earlier. I just want to read that because I think that may be a pivotal factor in any decision that we make on changing the use of Abaca in our money. No? Culture has a crucial role to play in SDG 11, making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, reliant, and sustainable. Specifically, Target 11.4 calls for strengthening efforts to protect and safeguard the world's cultural and natural heritage. So I'll build that into the argument also that there is a special role that the use of Abaca has for us. By the way, that was a quote from UNESCO. So yun lang, Mr. Chairman. I will continue to monitor and learn from this. Thank you for calling this hearing. Thank you then sa BSP. And I'd like to hear from the other, I'll be monitoring Mr. Chairman, you will still hear the other resource persons pa naman, ano, on those who have concerns about the use of Abaca. Is that correct?
Yes, you'll be hearing from the producers of Abaca, and
Okay.
so we will after some questions from other colleagues.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you po sa lahat.
Thank you very much, Senator Cayetano. At this point, we'd like to recognize Senator Robin Hood Padilla for some questions.
Mabuhay po. Isang magandang umaga po sa inyo, mahal na tagapangulo, at sa atin pong mga kasamang senador, kay Ma'am Pia Cayetano, na tunay pong pinalalakas ang produktong ating at yung sinasabi pong sustainability. At syempre po sa ating pong mga bisita sa Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas at iba pong mga resource speakers. Ang tanong ko po ay hindi ko na po padadagdagan yung patungkol po dyan kung anong material. Ang akin lang pong concern ay patungkol po doon sa babalik din po ba sa ating mga bayani ang design. Ngayon po kasi nasa Philippine Eagle, napakaganda naman po nun. Pero babalik din po ba sa ating mga bayani ang design?
Your Honor, this is BSP Deputy Governor Mamerto Tangonan. May I be recognized?
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. In response, Your Honor, the design of our currencies are cyclical. So we've been using heroes in the previous years. We have used flora and fauna in the past, and this time, Your Honor, we will be using again with the eagle. Of course, it's an endangered indigenous Philippine species that we are all proud of, Your Honor. So it's cyclical, Your Honor.
Ibig po bang sabihin hindi na po babalik sa ating mga bayani? Magtutuloy-tuloy na po ito sa iba pang ano natin? Hindi lang sa 1,000?
Your Honor, pwede ho siyang bumalik sa theme ng mga heroes, Your Honor. Kasi cyclical po yung paggamit natin ng designs on the elements and components that the Filipino people and its culture are so proud of.
Opo. Kasi maganda naman po yan. Yung Philippine Eagle, hindi nga po ako kumokontra dyan eh. Dahil kailangan talagang malaman ng mga Pilipino na meron tayo talagang Philippine Eagle. At yan kilala. At yun na nga, sinabi nyo, medyo endangered na. Pero napakahalaga po ng ating mga bayani. Dahil parte po yan ng edukasyon. Kasi ang alam ko, ang pera, lagi mo yan nakikita eh. Ano man ng iyong edad, ano man ng iyong kasarian, ang pera, lagi mong siguro hindi lang oras-oras, kundi minuto na nakikita mo yan sa harap mo. At napakahalaga, yung nakalagay dyan ay nakapagtuturo kung saan ba tayo galing at sino ba yung pinagkakautangan ng ating kalayaan. At mahalaga na alam ng mga kababayan natin kung sino ang mga ito. Alam niyo po ba sa isang programa sa telebisyon po ito tinanong ang kabataan kung sino ang Gumburza, hindi nila alam. Tinanong kung sino si Apolinaryong Mabini, hindi rin nila alam. Nakakalungkot po yan. Opo, kaya ang akin pong pakiusap sa atin pong Central Bank na pagkatapos niyong pagyamanin ang ating mga endangered species na atin pong ikinararangal at pinagmamalaki. At yan din po ay sa turismo din naman yan na kailangan din. Halimbawa, may pumunta dito mga turista at nagpapalit ng pera, nakikita din nila na ito pala ang mga species sa Pilipinas. Maganda din po yun. Pero ang isang kahilingan ko lang po, huwag mo pong tatanggalin ang ating mga bayani diyan sa pera natin. Yun lamang po, maraming salamat. Meron po akong off-topic na tatanungin, pero baka masyado pong off-topic ito, mahal na chairman, dahil patungkol po ito sa pera at sa banknote natin. Baka po siguro mamayang konti na lang kapag tapos na po magsalita lahat. Meron lang po akong off-topic po ito mahal na chairman. Maraming salamat po.
Okay lang, Senator. May privilege ka naman na tanungin kung anong gusto mong tanungin. Kaya okay lang, Senator, kung kahit na medyo off topic.
Sige po, maraming salamat po, Chairman. Tanong ko lang po sana yung patungkol po doon sa, meron po kasi tayong Republic Act number 11439, an act providing for the regulation and organization of Islamic Bank. Ito po ay naisa batas noong August 22, 2019. Tanungin ko lang po sana sa atin pong mga mahal na kasama po sa Central Bank kung kamusta na po ngayon ang Islamic banking po sa Pilipinas.
Your Honor, the concerned resource person who is looking after the financial supervision sector is not with us this morning, Your Honor. But upon request of the honorable senators, we may return and with the concerned resource person and expound on this topic more, Your Honor.
Po, maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangalawang Tagapangulo po ng Central Bank. Yun lamang po, aking mahal na kabatch, aking mahal na Tagapangulo, Senator Mark Villar. Antayin ko na lang po kung kailan po pwede, medyo off-topic nga po. Pasensya na po. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat, Senator Padilla. And if I can request also, if the Bangkok Central can furnish Senator Padilla with a update on his question about the Islamic banking. So if we can request, please, an update on his concern.
We will do so, Your Honor.
Anyway, at this point, you wanted to make a brief I believe the BSP wanted to make a brief presentation on another issue that was taken up during the privilege speech.
Yes.
Yes, please proceed, but let's make it brief because we still have to hear from the other stakeholders, the Abaca producers. So you can please proceed with your presentation, but let's keep in mind that we have our limited time also. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. This is in response to one of the topics raised during the privilege speech. And to present it, Your Honor, is our Senior Assistant Governor, Iluminada Sikat.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Senior Assistant Governor Iluminada Sikat. During the last hearing, there were questions raised on the issues regarding the BSP's monetary policy decisions and on the recent depreciation of the peso. Before I begin with my presentation, I would like to express that the recent monetary policy actions of the BSP involving series of increases in policy rates is directed to address the persistent increase in domestic inflation and the weakening of the Philippine peso amid the very aggressive monetary tightening of the US Fed as it battles its own inflation problem. The BSP has been responding to the challenge of rising inflation in recent months. Headline inflation started to rise in March 2022 and has reached 6.9% in September, driven by a combination of many factors. One is the increase in global commodity prices, both for oil and non-oil commodities, aggravated by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Aside from the external factors, production shocks in the form of weather disturbances such as typhoons and other natural causes, the animal diseases, specifically from the African swine fever to bird flu, and the weak output amid still recovering industry have also contributed to faster inflation. Lastly, given the imported share of domestic consumption, the depreciation of the peso following the aggressive rate hikes from the US has also exerted upward pressure on prices to some extent. The persistent supply-side constraints resulted to a broadening price pressure as shown in the rising core inflation, indicated as the blue line in the left chart. Core inflation measures the rate of increases of prices of commodities in the CPI basket, but excluding the selected volatile food and energy items, in order to depict the underlying demand-side price pressures. Data on core inflation rose markedly in August and September to 4.6% and 4.5% respectively. This also reflects the impact of emerging second-round effects following the approval of transport fare and wage hikes. Another metric to measure this is by looking at the number of CPI items shown here on the right side of the chart. With inflation rates above target, numbering 350, increasing out of the 315. In September 2022, items with above target inflation rose to 169 at the six-digit level. This number accounts for over half of the total CPI basket at 51.3%. Against a scenario of persistent elevated inflation, external headwinds, and a robust domestic economic recovery, the BSP has responded by tightening its monetary policy stance. Responding decisively and based on the latest information was necessary to help anchor the domestic inflation expectations amid the broadening price pressures. The emergence of second-round effects and potential spillovers from the external environment also contributed to the emergence of the price pressures. I would like to note that the other central banks also responded to the same challenges. While the BSP has now effectively reversed its pandemic-induced reductions in policy rate, the BSP stance is still not too restrictive, as the policy rate is still not much higher than the level seen prior to the pandemic. Moreover, based on assessment, our strong economic performance during the first half of 2022 provides us some scope for upward policy rate adjustment. The BSP is fully aware that recent policy measures of the BSP are expected to entail some trade-offs. Specifically, monetary policy tightening may reduce depreciation pressures and lower inflation, but it could also dampen domestic growth. In the long term, real interest rates could discourage household spending and expansion due to higher cost of funding. I would like to emphasize, however, that while funding costs will likely rise in the near term due to the policy rate hikes, the primary risk to investment and labor market emanates from the broadening price pressures, the global headwinds caused by the slowdown in the country's major trading partners, as well as the lingering uncertainty from the pandemic. The BSP raised its policy rates in recent months in order to temper price pressures and prevent them from having long-term implications. Three factors drove the Monetary Board's decision: inflation outlook, expectation of what inflation would be moving forward, and strength of the domestic economy. On inflation projections, latest baseline forecasts indicate that inflation could settle above the government's target range of 2 to 4% for 2022 and 2023. inflation would decelerate and return to the midpoint of the target range at 3% by 2024. The persistently elevated inflation is not an issue that is specific to the BSP or among other regional central bank peers. Advanced economy central banks are also facing broadening price pressures. Central banks with elevated or above target inflation rates are tightening monetary policy rapidly in order to moderate or lower demand and align it with supply. As shown in this chart, most of the central banks that we monitor tighten monetary policy amid soaring prices. The green bars represent the actual inflation rate of selected countries, while the red line shows the target inflation of each country. You can see from the chart that actual inflation in countries presented have exceeded their inflation target except for China. In the case of the BSP, we also tightened our monetary policy settings by raising the short-term interest rate to combat rapid rising prices as well as to prevent inflation expectations from being disanchored and price pressures from panning further second-round effects. The current movements of the peso remain heavily influenced by broad dollar gains amid the aggressive policy tightening by the US Fed, concerns over the protracted conflict between Russia and Ukraine, as well as the deterioration in the global growth outlook. On the domestic front, the country's widening trade and current account deficit and elevated inflation rate likewise added to the downward pressure on the peso. On a year-to-date basis, the peso depreciated against the US dollar by 13.56% to close at 59 pesos per dollar last October 17 from the end December 2021 closing rate. While the policy rate adjustment by the BSP and participation in foreign exchange market are perceived to be effective in tempering the depreciation pressures, concerns on the continued sizable US Fed rate hike and the ensuing narrowing of policy rate differential between the BSP and the US Fed are expected to drive investors towards the US dollar as a safe haven asset. Recent pressures in the foreign exchange market are not unique to the peso, with other peer currencies in the region also seeing a pronounced depreciation. The currencies of major economies, including the euro, the British pound, and the Japanese yen, have likewise weakened against the US dollar. So what has been the Philippine BSP's action in managing the peso depreciation? The BSP responded by raising interest rates aggressively while also participating in the FX market, although at a lesser extent than some of the neighboring economies. The approach has been to smooth out excess daily volatility rather than defend a specific level or trend of the peso. We believe that the double-barreled response of the BSP was appropriate to ensure orderly market condition and reduce excessive short-term volatility in the exchange rate market. Nonetheless, the BSP will always be ready to participate in the foreign exchange market only to ensure orderly market condition and reduce excessive short-term volatility. The BSP is also prepared to utilize other tools to respond to fluctuations in exchange rate and to ensure that legitimate demand for foreign currency is satisfied. These include liquidity enhancing and management tools such as the US dollar repo facility, the exporter's dollar and yen rediscount facility, and the enhanced currency rate risk protection program. The BSP has also access to international financial arrangements which it can draw on that can provide insurance against crisis and financing to mitigate their impact. The BSP has likewise pre-deployed non-monetary measures to respond to challenges of maintaining financial stability. These policies are already in place to contain the risk-taking behavior of financial intermediaries in good times. Looking ahead, The Philippine peso is expected to be supported by sustained foreign exchange inflows that could help counterbalance the pressures on the currency. Aside from the ample gross international reserves, the projected recovery in structural foreign exchange inflows, receipts from remittances, from business process outsourcing, and from tourism revenues, as well as inflows coming from foreign investment, can help provide insulation against the spillovers from the policy normalization in advanced economies, as well as geopolitical conflict between Russia and Ukraine. To summarize, we will continue to reiterate that the BSP will make consideration to external development such as the US Fed policy action and that of other central banks insofar as their effect would be on inflation. Our assessment was that the continued depreciation of the peso would have already affected the prices of goods, more so given that the Philippines is a net importer. The higher cost of these imported commodities is passed on to further stages of the production process, consequently raising the price of goods and services. I would also like to emphasize that the BSP had to be proactive in its monetary policy responses for us to ensure inflation will remain manageable moving forward. The impact of our policy interventions may take time and come with the objective of preventing any lingering price pressure. Nevertheless, the BSP will continue to monitor the developing situation both here and abroad. We will remain supportive of the national government's effort to implement non-monetary measures in addressing supply-side issues. But the BSP is also prepared to take further action to bring inflation back to target and prevent any lingering price pressures. Any policy interventions will continue to be data-driven and guided by our latest outlook on inflation and growth. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving us this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. And it's good to know that the BSP is on top of the situation, especially with the given, of course, there are certain international the interest rates increase in the U.S. that are beyond our control. There are events that are beyond our control that are creating the depreciation of the peso. But it's good to know that the BSP is on top of things, and especially the inflation. I saw in the chart there's some you're responding. I hope the increase in our interest rates locally can already reverse the trend of the increase in inflation. Hopefully, it will be enough. So I hope, hopefully, maybe in future hearings, you can give us an update on how effective our steps have been in curbing inflation and also hopefully stabilizing the peso. At this point, I think we'd like to hear also from the stakeholders from the fiber and Abaca industry. At this point, I'd like to recognize the Philfida, and I'd like to call them to please present. But please also, we're also limited in our time, so if we can make the presentation as succinct as possible, please make an effort to summarize the major points. Thank you very much. At this point, we'd like to recognize the Philippine Fiber Industry Development Authority.
Yes, good morning po. This is Robert Atienza from Philpida po. Can we share? Ms. Amor, please present the presentation of Philpida.
Yes, please continue, and let's please keep it as efficient as possible.
Kami na kasi yung
Yes, good morning po. This is the response of the position or the Philpida's position on the BSP's plan. We prepared this position paper way back in 2021 when we heard that the BSP will be using the polymer for the 1,000 peso note. So the presentation will be about the Abaca in Philippine banknotes, paper banknotes, polymer banknotes, and the importance of Abaca in the Philippine economy, and the conclusion. Mr. Moore, next. Yes, for the introduction, the BSP introduced the cotton Abaca blend in 2001. This is a result of the study wherein there was a request from the Abaca industry sector to use Abaca as part of our banknotes. So based on the study of the based on the studies conducted by BSP, we were able to produce, the BSP were able to produce the Abaca cotton blend, which is 80% cotton and 20% Abaca. So, but during this, after that period, there was a time now that BSP also planned to use polymer way back in 2009. But Senator Manny Villar, the father of our current committee chair, is opposed this plan then of the BSP to use polymer. So he strongly advocated the use of Abaca in the Philippine banknotes in his resolution in the 14th Congress of the Republic of the Philippines in 2009. But thus, in 2021, the PA is again contemplating on the shift from paper banknotes to polymer, wherein it is now being circulated. Next. So, as I have said earlier, there was a study even by the BSP on the use of the Philippine banknotes, and based on their study, they produce 80% cotton and 20% Abaca based on the following characteristics: the high folding endurance, tear resistance, tensile strength, wet strength, and bursting strength of the paper note. So based on these characteristics, we produce the 80% and 20% cotton banknote. Next. The paper banknotes are also being used in many other countries, like for Japan, it is the made from oriental paper brush, Abaca pulp, and other fibers. For the US, it is 85% linen and 75% cotton. And for the Philippines, it is 80% and 20% Abaca. Based on these studies, banknotes are commonly made from cotton blend and can survive a spin cycle in washing machine. It has also long lifespan and eco-friendly and composted in a manner similar to food waste, which was mentioned by Senator Pia. And then majority, as of now, the majority of countries still stick to paper currency. Japan is still using specialty papers in their banknotes. The European central banks decided to stick to paper banknotes for security and cost aspects, as it was decided that cotton paper is the best material for your banknotes. And based on the lifespan study for the US, one peso dollar is equivalent to, has an estimated lifespan of 6.6 years, while for $100, it is 22.9 years. So we can still say that banknotes made from fiber materials have also long lifespan. Next. The world's first polymer banknote was the 10% commemorative notes issued in January 1988 to commemorate the Australian bicentenary. The country is shifting to polymer banknotes, as stated by the central bank, apparently due to resistance to water or waterproof, longer lifespan, or it can stand extreme temperatures, and more eco-friendly due to longer lifespan and recyclability. On the other hand, polymer banknotes are sticky and slippery when wet, thus less comfortable to hold, count, and transfer. It is costly for the banks and other institutions, as sorting machines will have to be modified or updated. There was once during somebody told us that when he or she withdraws in the ATM and the banknote was made from polymer, she found out that the polymer easily have some scat or somewhere deformed. And then so we have to the bank should prepare a different ATM, which will be costly for the banks. It is almost 3 times worse for the environment than their paper equivalents because of the carbon dioxide emissions are higher. While it is said that polymer banknotes are not easy to counterfeit, there are some instances that it was also counterfeited, like in Romania. So we can say that the polymer banknotes and the piso banknotes and the fiber banknotes or the paper banknotes can both be counterfeited. So it is the printing agencies that will have to provide a better counterfeit measures. Like Japan was able to according to them, they were able to have less counterfeit instances to their money because of the measures that they were able to conduct. Next. So what is the importance of Abaca in the Philippine economy? We are the world's biggest supplier, contributing more than 85% of the total world requirement for Abaca fiber in the last 50 years, and we are the top export earners of the country. It is also the principal raw materials for the world-renowned Manila rope, and one of the country's major pillars in terms of employment generation and exchange earnings. In 2019, Philippines supplied about 86.1% of the world Abaca fiber requirement. As materials for Philippine money, Abaca fiber is the strongest among natural fibers. Thus, Abaca cotton paper banknotes also has outstanding characteristics. It is more resistant to saltwater decomposition, excellent choice for producing these thin papers of low and high porosity and high strength, and prepared by various industries in the world over man-made fibers such as plastic materials. In terms of the environmental protection, it minimizes soil erosion and sedimentation. Floods and landslides will be prevented as waste holding capacity of the soil is improved, and Abaca waste materials are used as organic fertilizer. Abaca plays a vital role in growing Abaca advocacy for environmental protection and forest conservation, as there is a strong worldwide interest and acceptability for green and organic products. Next. So in conclusion, in support of the numerous Abaca farmers and their dependents, the Philippine Fiber Industry Development Authority therefore appeals to reconsider the idea of shifting to the use of polymer instead of Abaca cotton for our banknotes or currency. That's all po. Thank you very much, Senator Mark Villar.
Thank you. Thank you to the Philcida for that presentation. At this point, we'd like to recognize the Federation of from the Abaca Farmers. We'd like to hear from the Abaca Farmers, the Federation on Free Farmers, the FFFC. So please proceed with your presentation.
Yeah, maraming salamat, Mr. Chairman. Unang-una po, let me correct the MC at the beginning. Ako po ay my first name is not Leonor. Check, wala pa po akong name change. It's Leonardo. My full name is Leonardo Montemayor.
Yes, sir. I can see nakalagay na po Leonardo po.
Okay, salamat po. Mr. Chairman, tatlo pong major points ang ipresenta ko po. Yung una po, I will talk a little bit on the process. Pangalawa po yung sustansya po ng policy ngayon ng BSP tungkol po sa paggamit ng polymer. At yung pong pangatlo, yung pong it's more of the mindset that should accompany, I believe, our discussions on this matter. Tungkol po sa proseso, Mr. Chairman, may I just briefly point out, in our Constitution, I refer to Section 16, Article 13, and let me just quote, it's quite short. The right of the people and their organizations to effective and reasonable participation at all levels of social, political, and economic decision-making shall not be abridged. At kaakibat po nito, we have a existing law, Republic Act 7607. Ito po yung Magna Carta of Small Farmers. I think this was made into law in 1992, which essentially reiterates that constitutional provision I just quoted from, as well as it amplifies and fleshes out that particular provision as it applies to our small farmers and the agricultural sector. So, nakita ko po dito sa naging desisyon ng BSP sa paggamit po ng polymer sa paggawa po ng ating 1,000 piso notes. Tila hindi po nasusunod yung proseso po na nakasaad po sa ating saligang batas. Take the case na lang po yung kanina, yung punto po ni Senator Robin Hood Padilla. Paano po nangyari na ang pinili po ng BSP na ilagay po sa design po ng polymer notes ay yung pong ating pong Philippine eagle, isa pong endangered species. Kasi po kung pag-usapan po naman natin ng endangered species, ang punto po ni Senator Padilla hindi kayo mas importanteng endangered species yung pong ating mga bayani. So bakit po mas binibigyan ng importansya po yung, hindi naman po namin sinasabi, hindi importante yung Philippine eagle, but perhaps even more important is that we expose our young people and other users of our banknotes to a greater awareness of our heroes, our national heroes. And again, Mr. Chairman, speaking of endangered species, hindi kaya pwede rin i-consider natin ang ating mga Abaca farmers as endangered species, perhaps even more important than the Philippine eagle. So kung we feel that our Abaca farmers also need the protection in the same manner that we want to create greater awareness of and protection for Philippine eagle, siguro naman mas lalong importante po na bigyan po natin ng awareness at sapat na tangki po ang ating Abaca farmers. So I'll now go very quick to the issue of substance, Mr. Chairman. May I also point out that in our Constitution, Section 12, Article 12 also, and I quote, the state shall promote the preferential use of Filipino labor, domestic materials, and locally produced goods, and adopt measures that help make them competitive. So I was wondering if the BSP, when it made its decision to shift from a blend of 80% cotton to 20% abaca to polymer, whether they were aware that there is such a provision in the Constitution.
Have we lost the connection? Comsec?
Yes, Your Honor. From the side of Mr. Montemayor, nawalan po siya ng internet connection.
While we're waiting, maybe he was mentioning about this constitutional provision. Does the BSP have any comment on that while we're waiting for Mr. Montemayor to reconnect?
Mr. Chair, this is Attorney Capule, the General Counsel of the BSP. Yeah, we are aware of, permission to continue, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, yes, please continue.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, we take into account all the existing provisions of law when we made the
I
decision.
think
And we,
napakalaki po. So I believe that that's a major factor in why our peso is depreciating. And that's why I
Sorry,
think
Mr.
this
Montemayor, we lost you for a minute there, so we didn't catch. Actually, the Bangko Central was just commenting on your statement about the. Maybe they can finish their comment and then you can
Yeah,
proceed, sir.
yes, Mr. Chairman. So
Yeah,
my
yeah,
point, Mr. Chairman, is although they pointed out na yun naman pong share ng Abaca in terms of the purchases for banknotes is relatively small. I see it as indicative of a mindset, as a general indication of our mindset, which to me is contrary to the President's own pronouncements, so emphasizing agriculture, pushing for our own domestic capacity to provide as much as possible for our own needs, vis-a-vis, in this case of plastic raw materials for our polymer peso bill. So it's really a mindset that I'm also worried about, Mr. Chairman, na kung ganito palagi, tapos ngayon, pag-usapan na naman nila yung yung low tariff regime. They want to continue a low tariff regime on the importation of agricultural products. You talk about rice, you talk about pork, you talk about fish. Ganun na naman, Mr. Chairman eh. Hindi po talaga tinitignan yung po talaga fundamental reasons for the weakness not only of our peso, but also of our economy. And in the case of the Abaca industry, we see now what is happening, Mr. Chairman. Although, as I mentioned earlier, parang balit nga naman yung share ng purchases of Abaca in the making of banknotes. But if you spread that thinking throughout the entire agriculture and fishery sector, this is what we get. We get a burgeoning trade imbalance every month. And I don't see how we can overcome this and meet the President's own commitments unless we change our mindset. Yun lang po, Mr. Chairman. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation. Maybe I can ask the BSP to continue with your comment. Tapos na po yung presentation, sir. Mr.
Opo,
Montemayor.
Mr. Chairman. Tapos na po.
Thank you
Yeah.
po. If you can comment on that, some of his regarding issues regarding the constitutionality.
yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. The BSP, of course, took into consideration all aspects. But number one, we have to realize that constitutional provisions are not self-executory, meaning these are principles which the Constitution leaves to Congress how to be cognizant of these provisions. But when we came up with a decision, it's a holistic, meaning we cannot just make a decision based on, let's say, a particular sector industry. We look at the entire economy, the entire impact, the savings, which is good for all. That's why we have a very extensive presentation, all the features that we took into account before making that final decision, which is still experimental at this stage. So we took into account all the relevant provisions of the Constitution and all the legal premises before the decision was arrived at. And we also would like to know that it was approved by the President of the Philippines. And we all know that the President does not just approve any matter coming from a government agency. There's still complete staff work at the level of the office of the President, because at that level, the President can look at the entire economy, all the considerations before giving his final imprimatur. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. What is the I don't know if you have any statistics on this, but or maybe you can give us an idea. What is the effect on this? What is the demand for Abaca for a currency, and what is the in terms of volume? What is the effect of this on our farmers?
Well, based on the data, Mr. Chairman, we have roughly about 200 farmers that are directly or indirectly engaged in the Abaca industry. And this is spread over, I believe, 56 provinces. I think the top producing province is Caranduanes. So please note also, Mr. Chairman, Catanzaro is probably one of the poorest provinces in the country. So may impact po ito in terms of yung poverty picture, availability of jobs, incomes for rural residents, and also in addition to that, Mr. Chairman, it's the psychological impact, kasi yun nga po, pati mga farmers parang ang feeling nila ngayon, bakit ngayon pati yung ating industriya ng Abaca na pinagmamayabang po ng Pilipinas, pati yun po minamalit na natin. we are, you know, when we were in school, I hope you also realize, experience this, Mr. Chairman, tinuturo sa atin that we should be proud of our Abaca industry, di ba? Yung parang po ng, we were under Spain, the Philippines was well known for its Manila hemp, etc. So this is one thing that was very, very much pounded into our heads. And then ngayon, Central, sa nakapagtanggol ng ating currency at ipagbigyan po ng malaking importansya, sila po yung number one po na nagtutulak na itabi po ang ating Abaca at ipapabor po natin yung polymer as the basic raw material. So para psychological po, Mr. Chairman, parang nawawala po tuloy ng gana. Hindi lang po yung ating mga magsasaka, but in general, I would say even the many sectors of agriculture, kasi maganda po yung mga policy pronouncements ngayon, especially under President Bongbong. So he has a chance now, I believe, Mr. Chairman, and also the Senate now. We are now in the new Congress and a new administration to reverse whatever was in our mind not the proper thing to do, which was done in the previous administration. Yun lamang po. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you. And at this point, we'd also like to hear from the Abaca pulp manufacturers and how the current BSP initiative will affect their industries. First, we call the representatives from the Association of Abaca Pulp Manufacturers Incorporated. Thank you. Please, if we can keep our presentations brief, thank you very much. Do we have the AAPMI area here? The AAPMI and Pulp Specialties Philippines Incorporated. Comsec?
May we call on Ms. Aurora Peralta, please? She's online, Your Honor.
Ma'am? I hope you can present to us.
Okay, can you hear me? We have agreed that the present